If you want to help out and support the channel, there are a few things you can do. Go check out Flipside Gaming and use the promo code VOIDMAGE in all caps. This will get you 10% off all orders $10 or more. And if you go shopping on tcgplayer.com, go use my affiliate link in the description below. That way all purchases you make will go towards helping the channel. And lastly, go check out my Patreon. It's a more direct way that you can help the channel while also getting some more interaction. I appreciate all of your support. If you haven't already, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Hello everyone, time for another patron requested deck tech. This time for new patron Logan. Logan requested that I make an unlimited budget, competitive, but not infinite infect Ezuri deck. So I'm assuming this is going to be the Ezuri Claw of Progress, seeing that is the Ezuri that is most commonly used for infect. He's a pretty cool commander. Since we can't go infinite, that takes away the Sage of Hours combo. I'm not always the biggest fan of infinite combos anyway, and we are playing infect, so why should we need to play an infinite combo? Whenever a creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you get an experience counter. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you put X +1/+1 counters on another target creature you control, where X is the number of experience counters you have. There are so many good creatures with power 2 or less that you can take advantage of, especially if we're talking about infect. Let's start it off here with the lands. It's a good foundation. Since this is going to be a little bit more competitive, you're going to see some utility lands, Alchemist, Refuge. If you have plenty of mana, this could be one of the better cards in the deck. It's always nice if you get to play something at your opponent's end step, especially if we don't have that many haste enablers. We don't want to give our opponents plenty of time to remove our board. Reliquary Tower, we are going to draw a bunch of cards in this deck, and we're going to draw them in bunches, making it so that our maximum hand size is not just 7, is pretty good. Rogue's Passage is a must-have in any combat-focused deck, especially since we have Infect. We want to be able to swing uncontested. And Card's Bastion is good for any deck that wants to Infect because you can just pay 4 mana and tap it to proliferate, giving all the opponents with those poison counters another one. Probably one of the best lands you can have in this deck is Inkmotlles. Give yourself another creature that can deal Infect. It has flying, so it's most likely going to connect. Now let's talk about some ramp, because part of making a deck more competitive is being able to play your spells earlier on. And since we have an unlimited budget, we have Mana Crypt to go along with our usual Soul Ring, making it so that we can easily get a turn 2 Ezuri. The sooner you get Ezuri out, the sooner you can put counters on your creatures and swing for more infect. We don't have too much sorcery ramp, we just have a Kodama's Reach. The rest of our ramp is going to be in creature form, because Ezuri rewards you for playing creatures power 2 or less. Arbor Elf, Birds of Paradise, Elvish Mystic, Findhorn Elves, Llanowar Elves. Sometimes Coiling Oracle can get us a land. We of course have Sakura Tribe Elder, which can help us get another land, but those creatures are going to be standard for Ezuri decks. Maybe not as many of the elves, but they're small creatures that are going to help your deck. You get to play some of your spells earlier, and you get to contribute towards your total experience counters. If you want to go beyond this and fool around with counters specifically, we have Gyre Sage and the newer Incubation Druid. If you put counters on them, you get rewarded for mana. Incubation Druid is a set amount of mana, but you can change the type of mana that you get, so you can get blue mana. And probably one of the cooler interactions is Devoted Druid. Already known for combos, this isn't going to be an infinite, but if you can put something like 5 +1/+1 counters on it with Ezuri, you can just put a -1/-1 counter on it and keep on tapping it. So this and Gyre Sage are going to give us a bunch of green mana. Now we have some other utility cards that are going to give us either card draw or serve some other good purpose in this deck. And immediately after this, we're going to talk about things like Proliferate. But we have Walking Ballista. This is a no-brainer for the kind of deck if you want to make it more competitive. You can have it enter the battlefield with just 1 +1/+1 counter, and then put more on it with Ezuri. Late game, this can really deal some damage. Eternal Witness is a staple in green, is also a power 2 or less creature. Reclamation Sage, another solid utility ETB. And Fathom Mage is going to help us out a bunch with card draw, and this is what I was talking about earlier. When we get card draw, it's usually in bunches, so if you can end up putting a few counters on Fathom Mage, you can draw a few cards. If you get more experience counters, if Ezuri is still out there, you can keep that number going. Not only will you have a bunch of card draw, but you will have a massive Fathom Mage. Muldrifter is a good old blue card in Commander. 2 power creature that enters the battlefield and draws us 2 cards. Don't even have to pay the full 5 mana. If you just want to evoke it, you will still get the experience counter and the card draw. And going into counter spells, we have Glen, Elendra, Archmage. She is pretty much always going to be a power 2 creature. She dies, she comes back as a 1/1 pretty much. If we want to get rid of the -1/-1 counters, we can just put a +1/+1 counter on her. That way we can keep sacrificing her and having her come back. She is just going to keep giving us more experience counters, and once we have her out there, it's very difficult for our opponents to really do anything. Again, this is going to be more of an unlimited budget, so we don't want to go super crazy with the counter spells, but the ones that we have, we want them to be good. Pact of Negation, Swan Song, Counterspell, and Mana Drain are pretty good counter spells. They're on the cheaper side when it comes to mana, so it's going to help us out if our opponents try to stop whatever we're doing. If you want a more on-theme counter spell, we do have Fuel for the Cause. It's just a 4-mana counter spell that also happens to proliferate, so if you're getting close to killing opponents with infect, this might be enough to push it over the edge. And although it's not a counter spell, it is actually a pretty good card to have in any deck that is capable of killing an opponent really quickly. Veil of Summer, you draw a card if an opponent has cast a blue or black spell this turn. Spells you control can't be countered this turn. You and permanents you control gain hexproof from blue and from black until end of turn, which should right away protect you from counter spells, but it also probably helps you against what is one of the better removal colors in the game. If that's not enough for you, we also have Heroic Intervention. Permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. We don't want to get board wiped because there aren't too many ways that we can recover in this deck. It's best to just stop that before it ever happens. And a couple more cards. These are more of like setup cards, but we do have Sylvan Library for a little bit of extra card draw. And Hadana's Climb is going to help us out with our creatures that already have a bunch of +1/+1 counters. Once it flips, it's going to give a creature flying and +X/+X, where X is its power, making it really easy to kill someone with infect. So now on to the bulk of the deck. This is going to be how we infect our opponents. We have a bunch of them. Glistener Elf, just a 1/1 infect creature. Blight Mamba, 1/1 for 2, but it does have the ability to regenerate itself. Blighted Agent is just a 1/1 for 2 again, but it is unblockable, making it one of the more dangerous creatures in the deck. Acre Claw Mirror is a 1/1 for 2, but when it becomes blocked, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Necropede is another 1/1 for 2, but when it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may put a -1/-1 counter on a target creature, making it a little bit easier for you to kill something off. If you have Proliferate, you should be able to just keep putting more -1/-1 counters on that creature. And Plague Mirror is another 1/1 for 2, but it taps for 1 colorless mana. Rotwolf is a 2/2 for 3. Whenever a creature dealt damage by Rotwolf this turn is put into a graveyard, you get to draw a card. Seeing as you can make Rotwolf a lot bigger with Ezuri, your opponents are probably going to be forced to block. Those creatures are going to get -1/-1 counters and likely die. Viridian Corruptor is a 2/2 for 3 mana, but when it enters the battlefield, you destroy target artifact. Blight Widow is just a good solid reach creature here, 2/4 for 4 mana. Corpse Prowler is just an infect creature with a good death trigger. When it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you proliferate. A Corpse Cur is going to kind of help us recover if we need it. When it enters the battlefield, we may return target creature card with infect from our graveyard to our hand. And then we have Viral Drake, probably one of the best creatures in the whole deck. 1/4 flying infect for 4 mana, but we have a 4 mana activated ability where we can proliferate. Given that this deck is capable of producing a bunch of mana with something like Gyre Sage or Devoted Druid, it's easy to dump a lot of mana into proliferating with just Viral Drake. And then we have Phyrexian Hydra. 7/7 for 5 mana. If damage would be dealt to it, prevent that damage. Put a -1/-1 counter for each damage prevented. Again, the cool thing about -1/-1 counters is that you can pretty much get around them with +1/+1 counters. Then we have Putrefax. You can easily kill players with this creature. Trample Haste, 5/3 infect, but at the beginning of the end step you have to sacrifice it. So the idea here is to just play it quickly, put a bunch of +1/+1 counters on it with Ezuri, and then hope you can kill a player. Phyrexian Swarmlord is one of the better creatures in the deck. At the beginning of our upkeep, we put a 1/1 green insect creature token with infect onto the battlefield for each poison counter our opponents have, which should be a lot. All of those insects entering the battlefield are going to trigger Ezuri. You're going to have more experience counters. Nothing but good for the deck. And then we have Spinebiter, a creature that deals damage as if it were unblocked, making it really easy to kill our opponents with infect. And now the final part of the deck is taking advantage of all of these poison counters. We're going to do that with the wonderful mechanic of Proliferate. Now I mentioned Fuel for the Cause earlier. We also have Contentious Plan, 2-mana sorcery. We get to draw a card and proliferate, which is pretty much half of the next card, Tezzeret's Gambit. A little bit more flexible with the Phyrexian mana, but we can draw 2 cards and then proliferate. We can also draw a card with Steady Progress, instant speed though, so we have that flexibility. Proliferate is really good if you have reusable ways to proliferate. Thrumming Bird is capable of doing it if you deal combat damage. Evolution Sage is also capable of doing it multiple times if you can ensure yourself multiple land drops. And a card I'm really liking for this deck is Flux Channeler. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you're going to proliferate, which is probably the easiest thing to do multiple times. But we also have more dangerous cards like Contagion Clasp and Contagion Engine. Just the activated abilities here to proliferate. Contagion Engine obviously allowing you to proliferate once again is really dangerous. Once your opponents have those poison counters, you put them on a turn clock. Just a warning, this kind of deck is capable of painting a huge target on you, so be careful of exactly when you present your infect strategy. And a fairly newer card, but something that is perfect for this deck is Sword of Truth and Justice. You give the creature protection from white and from blue, which is really good. And when that creature deals combat damage to a player, you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, then you proliferate. So basically Thrumming Bird all over again. This time though, you could use it on an infect creature, give it that +2/+2, and also proliferate the poison counters that you gave to an opponent. And a card that can get out of hand is Inexorable Tide. Whenever you cast a spell, you proliferate. With all of those triggers, it shouldn't be hard to kill off your opponents. Now the last 2 cards I want to talk about are pretty much the win cons. If we get these, we shouldn't really need anything else. Triumph of the Hordes and Overwhelming Stampede. Triumph going along with the infect theme until end of turn. Creatures we control get +1/+1 and gain trample and infect. Trample being really the important part here, but it can also give infect to Ezuri. Ezuri can help you give poison counters, and Overwhelming Stampede might make it so that we don't even have to use infect to kill an opponent, because we can stack up those +1/+1 counters and make a really big creature, giving all of our other creatures that insane power and toughness boost. So with all of that, you should have a good time with infect. Again, just a warning, this is not an easy deck to play with. In a play group that is aware of what infect does, anytime you can effectively lower the amount of damage you have to deal in order to kill a player, it's usually going to make you a bigger target. And keep in mind, infect is not damage. So to a lot of people, they're just going to try to focus you out of the game so that their life totals remain relatively high. But anyway, I enjoyed making this deck for you, Logan. Thanks for becoming a newer patron. Again, everything is going to be linked in the description below, so if you want to see the price on tcgplayer.com, it'll be there. Also the link to Patreon. You all have a wonderful day. Void here signing off. See you all next video. Just wanted to say thanks to the patrons who are supporting me on patreon.com. Go check it out. There are different tiers with their own rewards. One of them is having your name in the credits of my videos. I know it's not much, but it's something that I can do to show my appreciation. Thanks again, and have a good day.